Welcome to the Education Assistant Program webinar presented by Sprott Shaw College. My name is Shane Gibson and I'll be your MC for this webinar. A little introduction and a little background on Sprott Shaw College before we get started. Sprott Shaw was founded in 1903 by Robert James Sprott, who partnered with William Henry Shaw to open, of course, the first campus. Today, Sprott Shaw College trains over 3,500 students per year at 16 different locations, focusing on really small class sizes, qualified instructors, and of course, hands-on training. A little bit about the Education Assistant Program before we introduce our main event and our main speaker today, Sharla Hardie. So the Education Assistant works under classroom teachers, resource teachers, and principals, and gives special attention to students with physical, learning, or emotional needs by implementing individualized or group instruction in communication skills, life skills, behavioral management techniques, and of course, adaptive physical education as well. Education assistants support all students in classroom environments and perform duties that are instructional or deliver direct services to students and parents. So a little housekeeping before we get into the webinar. If you'll notice within Zoom, there's a Q&A section. And so feel free to enter your questions right away. One of the reasons why is, I don't know about you, I attend a lot of these webinars these days, but I'll have a question and I want to hold on to it for the Q&A period and I've forgotten it by the time I get there. And so my suggestion is, if you have a question for one of our speakers, to enter the question right away in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best at the end of the presentation to actually have a 10 to 15 minute window where we're going to answer all of your questions. So today we're joined by Sharla Hardie and two graduates, Melissa Kimberly and Michael Radke. And so I'm going to now introduce Sharla. So Sharla is the team lead of Sprott Shaw's Education Assistant Program. She has over 15 years of experience in the education field. She brings with her a passion for equipping her students with the tools to work successfully with children of all abilities. A lifelong learner, she enjoys deepening her knowledge of mental health, complex trauma, and the process of healing the brain through connection. She looks forward to being part of many more student journeys and success stories. And now I'm going to hand it over to Sharla, and she's going to walk us through the Education Assistant Program. Sharla, thanks for joining us.
Yes, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so just some a PowerPoint with information regarding our program. So as Shane said, my name is Sharla Hardie. I'm the team lead of our Education Assistant Program, the district liaison, practicum coordinator, and a part of our curriculum development team. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight. One of our favorite quotes in our classroom, Brene Brown, "No one belongs here more than you." So why Sprott Shaw College? It was established in 1903. Sprott Shaw College has a long-standing reputation of equipping our students with innovative ways of thinking across our accredited campus locations. We have over 130 career-focused programs, lifetime course refreshers and skills upgrading, monthly starts, skills and strategies for student and career success, dedicated employment service specialists, and 16 locations across BC. So our Education Assistant Program. A brief snapshot: the total program hours, 900, 700 hours of in-class theory, 180 hours of practicum experience, for an overall program length of 43 weeks. So why choose our program? Every instructor has spent many years working in the school system as education assistants, bringing extensive knowledge and experience to your classroom. The personalized stories and connections with both private and public school staff are essential. We recently launched our new and improved EA program after 3 years of meeting personally with district staff around our province. Each module aligns with our province's public school mandate, promoting inclusion, diversity, and exceptionalities. Our curriculum focuses on Canadian content. Hands-on classrooms allow for collaboration and team building, essential components when working in schools. So here we have some groups, and they're building brain systems and learning about the effects of trauma on brain development, guiding students with sensory impairments, and group study sessions. Many projects throughout the program are centered around tools you will use in the field, designed in the classroom to build your own personal toolkit to be an effective and essential asset to any child's need. Some examples. There's a math game created with the student's 3D printer that she'll be able to use in the schools. Tools to help struggling readers, so designed by a student and will also be helpful to use with other students in the schools. The student here is reading her own storybook she created, laminated, and bound in class. So at Sprott Shaw College, community involvement is very important to us and our students. All of our campuses promote and support many local charities, food drives, and mental health initiatives. Giving back to our community is a part of student and campus life. So here we have some students gifted our schools with books from local author Angela Murphy, promoting literacy and self-regulation. Some students had the amazing opportunity to volunteer at district-wide sports day for students with exceptionalities. We were able to provide food for over 300 hungry children. Pink Shirt Day. Online learning. So we've continued our classes online in an online learning format from home. But we believe connection, we believe in connection and have worked hard over this past year to ensure we all still feel connected. So what is the role of an education assistant? A student support, and what does that look like? Academic support, behavioral support, self-regulation, mindfulness, social, emotional support, and personal care. And then classroom support, assisting the teacher with academics, reading groups, math groups, one-on-one attention, assisting with classroom management, field trip support. Education assistants work with teachers to support students with diverse learning challenges, behavioral challenges, and special needs to ensure that they thrive in the classroom through behavior management, curriculum implementation, social skills development, personal care, and physical assistance. What is the role of an education assistant? To promote inclusion by assisting students in the classroom, to provide social and emotional support, teaching children how to communicate effectively, to ensure your student feels safe and accepted, and to build connection. So one of my favorite inclusion advocates, Shelley Moore, she's also from BC. It's easy to get caught up in what kids are not doing or all the problems we need to fix, but don't overlook that there's a real kid under there, and it just takes one person to connect with them. And that's essentially the role of an EA. So EAs in BC, there are 1,578 public schools and 364 independent schools in BC. The public schools are divided among 60 districts around our province. We've been facing a shortage of EAs for quite some time, and COVID has only increased this demand. In some cases, special needs students unfortunately are urged to stay home due to this shortage. Currently, there are postings for casual EAs on the Make a Future job site for the following districts: Burnaby, Coquitlam, New West, Delta, North Van, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, Richmond, Surrey, Vancouver, West Van, Langley, Mission, Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Fraser Cascade, as well as many others in the interior and on the island. We are here to help you succeed. So these are a few of our students coming back and ringing the bell when they were hired, and so we can celebrate with you. And in closing, connection is the energy that is created between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Sharla. We're going to now kind of move into a more conversational phase of this session where we're going to invite two alumni from the Education Assistant Program back to kind of talk about their experience in the Sprott Shaw program. You'll also be able to ask them questions in the Q&A period as well about the program. And I see that there's a number of questions that have already popped up in the questions and answers, so that's fantastic. Looks like we're going to have some good dialogue moving forward here. So I want to introduce first Melissa Kimberly. So Melissa is a 48-year-old mother of four with a diverse work history from residential caregiver, security guard to business owner. A repetitive stress injury was the driving force behind her actually returning to school. She is just starting out as an education assistant in the Chilliwack School District. In her spare time, she teaches crafts at the Cultural Center, participates in medieval recreation organization as well, and pursues a variety of handcrafts. So really diverse creative background. Thank you for joining us, Melissa.
Glad to be here.
Right now, we're also going to invite Michael. And so Michael Radke. Michael brings his love of pop culture with him everywhere, even as an educational assistant. He takes a calm and imaginative approach to his work, and through his love of media, finds unique ways to build relationships with his students. He has a background in theater and creative writing, which allow him to think outside of the box and solve problems. When not working, he enjoys podcasting and drinking coffee with his wife, taking action figure photos, watching cartoons, or playing video games with his 11-year-old son. So welcome.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a Q&A with the two of you, sort of a panel of sorts. And so, maybe we'll start off with, I know that was sort of your official bios, but I'd love to just sort of hear a little bit more about yourself, particularly maybe what inspired you to move into this career. Melissa.
Well, I'm lucky. I'm married to a teacher, and I had for many years wanted to go into teaching myself. Life just kind of happened, and I didn't end up completing my degree, and I felt that was just out of my reach at that point. So I had a variety of other jobs, and like you mentioned in the bio, a repetitive stress injury. It was actually a series of repetitive stress injuries that kind of made me go, maybe house cleaning isn't the lifelong job I thought it was going to be. So it was time to look at something else. And so we talked it over, and going back to school for my education degree was a little out of reach financially. But we thought that going back to school at Sprott Shaw to become an education assistant was absolutely within our reach financially. And it would give me the kind of work that I could find fulfilling and meaningful and have a positive impact in the lives of students, which is really what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. And Michael, what prompted this career direction for yourself?
I had been a stay-at-home father for almost 8 years. So when we'd moved back to Canada, we were running into some struggles with my son. He was having some behavioral issues. And through working with the teachers, we got him off a behavioral list. And my friend, who is a teacher at CSS in Chilliwack here, the high school, he had suggested me looking into the EA program. And I'd had a few other friends through Langley and Edmonton that had also mentioned my demeanor would work really well with the kids. So I started looking at that, and Sprott Shaw really felt like the right home to be in for that experience. And I ended up picking it too, just because I wasn't going to go into retail again, because I knew that my son still needed the support at home, and the EA career gives me that time to still be home after school for him for whatever needs that he needs. So
Great. So you mentioned this, a bit of a segue, Michael. Was my next question was, there's a lot of different opportunities out there for EA programs available in the marketplace, and so I'm curious, both from yourself and Melissa, you talked about Sprott Shaw being the option. What interested you or piqued your interest with Sprott Shaw? What were some of the deciding factors for you to go with Sprott Shaw?
for myself, I do a lot of research. I'm a big researcher, and I, write down pros and cons from everything, even the simple interaction of the phone call when you sign up for information. And the professional attitude that was given to me from Sprott really piqued my interest and allowed me to look more into it. At the time, too, I was actually going to be starting the program a lot earlier, but we had some family stuff go on with my wife losing her job. So it wasn't the right time. And the advisor at the Chilliwack campus was very compassionate to that, and kept me informed when the classes were there. So it was very much of like that loving kind of like, hey, we want you to succeed. We want you to be a student. And that drew me back into choosing Sprott as the place to go.
Great, fantastic. Melissa, what was some of your kind of deciding factors to go with Sprott Shaw as an option?
Well, I also did my research. I looked at our local university and I looked at a few other career colleges to see what their programs were like, what their hours were like. And really, what it came down to for me was what's going to work for my family. I still have school age children, and I wanted to be able to be in a program where I could still drop off my kids and pick them up from school at the end of the day. And Sprott Shaw's hours really worked with that. I really liked that I could choose either morning or afternoon. So really it fit my life very seamlessly. So we talked it over, my husband and I, and really it was the only one that I talked to because after having done the research, it was the one that fit.
That's fantastic, and something the two of you have in common is creative background, different type of creativity, right? But Michael is a huge fan of pop culture and sounds like video games as well, which me too. Admittedly, my son and I share that passion as well. Melissa, even medieval reenactment, which is sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of creativity. How do you find that this particular career allows you to tap into that creativity as much as you thought it would?
It absolutely does. I am finding that I'm really reaching into my bag of tricks, for lack of a better term, pretty much daily. It doesn't hurt as well that my brothers-in-law both work in computer software design. So one of them works on Fortnite, one of them works on Call of Duty. I'm really popular with the middle school guys.
Huge.
So
Fortnite's
it
the
gives me,
magic
it's an
word.
icebreaker, it's an opening to these kids, and it allows me to talk about some of my other hobbies and talk to them about theirs, and it gets them to open up to me.
That's great. That's great. How about yourself, Michael?
Oh, totally. Actually, my acting, like my theater background, has really helped because in a lot of cases, you are kind of code switching your lingo, especially depending on where you're going as a casual, right? Every student isn't the same, and you have to kind of look at how you're talking to them because in some cases, you're not talking as so much as a parent, you're talking to them as a friend.
Hmm.
To kind of get through those things. So using my love of pop culture is a great, like Melissa said, a great way to open up the door. You mentioned if you watch an anime and their eyes light up and they see that you're just like them, and then they build that trust, and it's amazing the bonds that you can get with them, and then the work that you can get done just through knowing that.
So, with Sprott Shaw, how was the overall experience with the classroom environment in Sprott Shaw? How did you find that?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, my experience was somewhat unconventional. I started my program at the beginning of March 2020. So I had 2 weeks in the classroom, and then COVID shut our campus and the world down. We had a week of spring break, and then we suddenly were kind of rolling with the punches and going to webinars as the way that the material was being presented. And I was a little unsure at first how that was going to work out. Was it going to be a struggle? Was it going to be more difficult for me? I actually found that I excelled with that format. And I really enjoyed having that kind of format. And I think that I ended up probably doing better in the program as a result. I would have loved to be in the classroom, don't get me wrong, but I think that I didn't lose anything by moving to webinars. And I really have to credit Sharla for that because she worked so hard to take the material and put it into a format that she could present it online. And it made it a really enjoyable experience. And I feel like I got a really fulsome experience there.
That's great to hear, and that's something that moving forward, you know, future students in the program will likely have an opportunity to experience both, but just in the reverse. They'll probably start online and then end up in the classroom at the end of the program. So it's great to hear, though, that both methods, this sort of hybrid of online offline, is something that can definitely work for this type of designation and program. Michael, what was your experience? I'm not sure
I
of
got
your
a taste
timeline,
of both,
so
right? I got a taste of both. I started in August, so I had a lot of classroom time. So the thing that was really cool about the classroom time was a lot of the hands-on experiences that we got with the building of the games and the presentations, more interactive. and really getting to connect with the other students in the room. Myself, I do, as much as I can be outgoing, I do have a lot of anxiety. So it was really good to be in that setting to prepare me for what was going forward, right, with practicum and eventually work. Um, but no, I had a lot of fun just being there and being around the people and getting to know the different things. I liked it when we got to do little projects in class, like when you're building something. Charlotte would bring in these little things like, hey, we're building. We had ornaments one day, and those like the masks. We painted masks and things like that. So those hands-on things I really do cherish from the school. And the online, I think I probably did better on the actual written assignments when we went online because I had more time to do, you know, those kind of things. So
It's a give and take, and there's that flexibility. I think it's interesting because flexibility is really what this role necessitates as well. So,
totally.
although maybe a little uncomfortable to make these switches between modes of learning, it helps us a bit to develop some empathy as well with our students and some of the challenges they have with different modes of learning. Uh, you mentioned earlier about the practicum. I'd love to hear about both of your practicums, where it was, how, who you did it with, what your experience was in that, the value it brought for you into now your role as an education assistant. Melissa.
Well, I did my practicum at Chilliwack Secondary. That was my high school. I graduated there in 1990, and my husband is a teacher there. So he's been there for the last 6 years. I have had 2 children that have gone to Chilliwack Secondary. So I've got a child there that's in grade 10 right now. And so it was familiar territory for me, but I also wanted to make sure that I had the experience of having a practicum at the high school level, because I don't think a lot of practicum students do that. And I think a lot of people are afraid to work in high schools. So I wanted to kind of tackle that fear right off the bat. And it was just, I could not have asked for a better practicum. It was a dream from start to finish. Um, it was a little surreal walking into the school at first and seeing some of my teachers that were still teaching there and going, what am I doing in the staff room? Am I going to get in trouble? But I got over it. And I found that I felt very much at home. The staff were really open and gracious to me. And I really felt like a part of the team right from the word go.
That's sounds like an amazing experience. I could imagine visiting and seeing some of my past high school teachers, and then sitting in the room. That'd be like.
It was a little weird.
Yeah, a little weird and still really amazing. I guess it felt like home too as well. So that's a great opportunity. Michael, what was your experience like?
I got to do my practicum at Central Elementary in Chilliwack here, and it was fantastic. Due to COVID, I was in one cohort, so I was basically in 2 classrooms for my entire time. But I got to experience other rooms as well through supervision. That's a key thing that I wasn't prepared for, was the supervision aspect of it. But that's something more of elementary school, so that is vital to learn on your practicum, is being out in the rain. But no, yeah, I had a great time. I built a lot of relationships with the kids, and the EA that I shadowed and all that was fantastic in teaching me all those little things and giving me the times like, this is a learning experience and this is your safety net. And it was just probably one of my most favorite experiences through the program. And then when I get to go back there as a casual, it's like just like going home, especially seeing those kids, right? And then all the people, the staff there as well. So, you know,
Just as a
So
quick
as
aside,
a
seeing the kids in the community, they recognize you in the community as
yeah.
well. And they're like, Mrs. K, Mrs. K. And they're so excited to see you.
Oh, that's
It's
one of
nice
the
to
best
have those
feelings,
lingering
right?
relationships.
Yeah. I love when I get to go back and you see them and they come up and they want to hug you almost, right? And you're just like, high fives, like, or the elbow thing now, right? It's
Right.
elbows. So
So you've just talked about being a casual there, and I guess this is kind of the question on the tip of my tongue. The next question was, after graduation from the program, how long did it take you to, secure a job in this field?
As quickly as I wanted, really. I interviewed the week after my practicum ended, and I was hired the week after that. And
Okay,
as soon as my orientation was done, I was working, and I haven't had a day where I haven't been called.
so pretty well instantly,
I was
Very
still in
much
right
so.
away.
practicum.
Right at the practicum.
I was still on practicum when I got the phone call for the interview. I was like 3 days out of practicum. So then it was just the logistics of getting into the district from that hire. So it was 2 weeks from the time I got called, interviewed, and then I was working. And yeah, basically hadn't had a day off since.
So so it sounds like, for both of you was a really good end result quickly, right? And it got you into some environments that you found incredibly rewarding. Looking back, one of my questions is, and I'll kind of wrap with this, and then we'll move into the Q&A, because we've got a group of people who have been patiently waiting for their own questions to be answered. But what advice would you give someone as a brand new student that you wish you would have received before you started the program? What would advice? So if you think, if I had been starting out here and before I started, someone gave me some advice and some direction, what would I have liked to have heard that maybe I didn't learn until later on?
Well, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm in the enviable position of having had a mentor who went through the program and I spoke to before I ever went to Sprott Shaw. And what she said to me is what I would say to anyone else. Don't be afraid. You can do this. If you feel like this is work that you are meant to do, you can do this and you can be excellent at it.
Great mentor. Thank you. And Michael, what was some of your thoughts?
Ask all the questions, like everything. It doesn't matter how big, small, or weird. Just ask it. Even on practicum, make sure you ask it, because it's your education, right? So on practicum, if you want to experience something, make sure the school knows that you want to experience that. Don't be afraid to ask anything.
Great advice. I think that's great advice for life.
True.
I really do. I think it's great advice for life. How often we don't ask a question, and life is an education opportunity, and so that's fantastic. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Sharla to unmute herself and join us again. And we've got some questions which I'm going to direct to Sharla, but she may also stick handle back to Michael and Melissa to address as well. And so these are some interesting questions. So this is the first question is from Anna Coelho. And her question was, do educational assistants need to do lesson planning or just follow the teacher's lesson plan for the day? That's a great question.
Yeah, awesome question. No, you don't need to do your own lesson plans. You're following that from the teacher. So you're taking guidelines, directions from the teacher. If there's students with individual education plans where they're kind of on a separate learning plan completely, you might have a little bit more freedom to work with them, but you're always working under either the classroom teacher, resource teacher, learning assistance teacher, mostly the resource teacher, but you're always taking direction from someone. Yeah.
Great. So with actually, there's another question here, and this came from a very different type of question. Asia had this question, says, my question is if I can upgrade my ECE Alberta certificate to the EA here in BC.
That's a great question. If you have your transcript, so you would want to contact an advisor. And if you have your transcript from your ECE Alberta program or your ECE program in Alberta, bring that in and we can have a look at it, have a look at what courses, because they are different from province to province, but we can have a look at what the courses are, the modules that you did take, and compare them with our EA program, and then go from there.
Excellent. So yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with how Sprott Shaw is set up, each campus has at least one, sometimes two, some of the bigger campuses, 4 education advisors, which will sit you down, walk you through the process, and really take you by the hand through the whole process and answer and problem solve a lot of these questions for you, because we've all got our own individual story. And so this is really what the advisors will help you do. Can educational assistants work with ELL? That's the acronym they gave here.
So English language learners.
Great.
EAs can work with ELL students. Usually it's different in every district, but say, not picking on Chilliwack all the time, but for the whole entire district, we probably only have 2, maybe 3 ELL teachers. So, or speech language pathologists or occupational therapists. So when they come into the schools, they might have 6, 7 schools under their belt, and that's a lot of students for them to look after or to teach on the daily. So they'll come in, give us direction, and then again, we're working under them with the students specifically. Yeah, I do strongly encourage. ELL is always something that's great to continue. Once you're in EA, it's always good to do extra courses anyways. But yes, an EA can work with ELL students.
Okay, fantastic. Here's a quick and I think straightforward question is from Haley Rachel, and that is, when's the next start?
Monday. We do continuous intakes. So that means that, so for my class, for example, I have so many students in there. We're finishing our module on Friday. They have an exam on Friday. So then there's a potential start date for Monday for new students to come in on the Monday, right? So a lot of our modules are only 2 weeks, and then we have a few 4-week modules. So at the beginning of every module, essentially we can take new students. So there's usually about 2 start weeks a month, 2 start dates a month per month. Yeah.
Great. I think this question is for Melissa and Michael. It seems like it's, what is it like to be a casual education assistant? How often can you expect to work? So actually, probably all 3 of you, because you got different perspectives. But I'd be curious to hear each of your answers on this.
Well, I'm the newest one, so I'm the low man on the totem pole. I'm working as a casual EA right now, and I've been called out every single day. So I would expect, because we still have a shortage in BC, you could expect to get called out most days. I mean, there's obviously no guarantee, but I have a girlfriend who's the teacher librarian at Mount Slessie, and she's constantly messaging me saying, we had 4 people out and no coverage. So they will go through their entire list of casual EAs and still have positions left over. So there's definitely positions out there for people that are interested in the program.
Great. This is actually a good question. That's actually, go ahead. Sorry, Michael, let me get, I got distracted by a question that popped up, but what was your thoughts on it?
I'm in a temporary position till the end of the year, and the school that I'm in also has shortages all the time. When I started, I had not a single 5:30 call that didn't pick up, and I was ready to go, packing my bag to find a new school to go do a new adventure, right? So
just before you move on, I've had probably in the last 2 weeks, 4 different districts call asking when we have more students coming out because they're desperate for EAs. So that's 4 different districts. And those are the ones that have my number. There's probably other campuses getting the same phone calls, but there is definitely a shortage. So casuals are working full time pretty much. Yeah.
So I've got a question here in the chat from Sheila, and what she said is, I don't have experience in teaching. What's the first step? Should I be moving into the education assistant program? So that's the question. There's no teaching background. Is this something for me?
totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, go ahead. You were answering.
I have no teaching background whatsoever. It's flexibility, patience, and perseverance is really what it takes to be an EA, and compassion. So those are really, I've learned how to do Math 10 all over again. I learned how to do, I'm learning science right now, right? So you learn on the fly, as long as you're willing to learn, and it's that adaptability that really helps, especially being a casual, because one day you're at a high school, next year you're doing kindergarten, right? So you just have to be able to be flexible to each curriculum and willing to learn. So
I have to agree with you, Michael. That's actually my experience this week. I went from a high school technology class to a kindergarten class the very next day. So yeah, you do have to kind of roll with things. And so having that flexibility of thought really will help you. But really, if you're rooted in compassion for the students that you're supporting, you're going to do well.
Yeah.
So a question here from Alexis in the Q&A, and that is there help to prepare students for their interviews for jobs after the course?
Yes, absolutely. Some people feel a little bit more confident, others not so much. We do have a list of questions. I do keep in touch with all our districts, so that list of questions is up to date. And then we go through those questions with students if they feel they need to, either in groups or one-on-one. We do kind of faux interview panels. I don't know your experience, guys. When I was hired years ago, it was not just the district staff, but all of the, I think there was about 12 people at my interview. I think you just had the one, didn't you?
Yeah, one-on-one.
Yeah,
So
it was
much-
just it was a web interview, and it was just one-on-one, and it was very low pressure.
yeah, very great questions based on really your practicum. They're questions that you can kind of think back to your 8-week practicum and answer those questions through your practicum experience.
So there was a question here from Haley, and this kind of goes in line with maybe a little bit of the practicum question, but it was, do I need to volunteer first? I think that maybe relates to maybe some work experience or to get your feet wet in order to get an opportunity. Is that something you have to do in order to be gainfully employed?
No, not at all. I would recommend volunteering if you're thinking, is this the field for me? That kind of, then I would probably think, well, why don't you do some volunteering at a school and just see if that's something, a field that you do want to go into, but it's not a requirement, no.
So last question, and I think this is from an international student, is this course available online?
So it is right now. We're online 100% right now. I know some classes are doing some what we call lab time at the school, at the campus, so that they can laminate, working on their toolkits, those kinds of things. But we are 100% online, as far as I know, until we have approval until the end of August. And then we're just taking it day by day. I mean, we don't know, it changes daily, what the guidelines are, right?
And this is the and absolutely, and so there are some questions that will be available online after COVID or after the market opens up. That's being decided by the ministry. These are things that may or may not happen. Likely it'll be a hybrid program because of course you require practicum anyways, and so you will have to physically, to my knowledge, be in British Columbia. Which means that you'll want to talk to Sprott Shaw's international advisors if you want to come here and take the program with the school. And so that would be sort of a short answer to a complex question. For your individual situation, really advise that you talk to our international advisors about that if you're from out of country or and looking at taking a program at Sprott Shaw. So what I want to do now is move to kind of wrapping up here a bit. And so we've had, I want to thank very much Sharla for sharing your wisdom and insights about the program, Melissa and Michael for sharing your passion, for education and the students you work with. And what I'd like to wrap up with is that if you've had a chance to speak with your advisors already, fantastic. They'll be following up with you. If you haven't, please, reach out to us, connect with us, and we'll make sure we pair you with an advisor at the campus closest to you so they can have an initial interview session to learn more about where you want to go and help you plot your unique path through the career of becoming an education advisor. You can, of course, visit sprottshaw.com and follow us on Instagram and on Facebook because you can get literally daily updates and questions answered there as well. So thank you again for joining us for this webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Thank you again, everyone.